Please like and subscribe. A single night in the Middle Ages. Welcome, weary travelers, to a time long past, when stone walls stood sentinel against the darkness and the flicker of torchlight painted dancing shadows on ancient corridors. Tonight, we journey together to the year 1347 to witness one complete night within the walls of Ravenscroft Castle, nestled in the rolling hills of what we now call England. Close your eyes, let the centuries melt away, and allow yourself to experience the quiet dignity of medieval life, hour by peaceful hour, from sunset to dawn. Our story begins as the sun touches the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Sunset. The day's end begins. The great bell of Ravenscroft Castle tolls 6 times, its bronze voice carrying across the countryside for miles. This is Vespers, the evening prayer, and throughout the castle, daily activities begin their gentle transition toward night. Lord Edmund de Montfort stands upon the battlements, his weathered hands resting on the cool stone as he surveys his domain. At 43, he has ruled these lands for over 2 decades, and this evening ritual of watching the sunset has become as sacred to him as any prayer. The autumn air carries the scent of wood smoke from the village below, where his people are lighting their hearth fires for the evening. Below, in the Great Hall, Lady Margaret oversees the final preparations for the evening meal. The massive oak tables, each carved from a single tree, felled in the castle's own forests decades ago, are being set with pewter plates and wooden trenchers. The hall can seat nearly 200 souls, though tonight only the household and a handful of traveling merchants will dine. The kitchen, a separate building connected to the main keep by a covered walkway, bustles with the controlled chaos of meal preparation. Master Cook Geoffrey, his face flushed from the heat of the great ovens, directs his staff of 12 with the precision of a military commander. Tonight's feast includes roasted capons, fresh river trout, thick pottage, and honey cakes, a meal that would feed a peasant family for a month. In the castle's chapel, Father Benedict lights the evening candles, their soft glow illuminating the beautiful stained glass window depicting St. George slaying the dragon, a gift from Lord Edmund's grandfather, who fought in the Holy Land. The chapel, small but exquisitely crafted, serves as the spiritual heart of the castle community. Historical note: medieval castles were entirely self-contained communities. A typical castle like Ravenscroft would house between 100 and 300 people permanently, including the lord's family, knights, men-at-arms, servants, craftsmen, and clergy. During harvest time or times of war, this number could swell to over 500 souls seeking protection within the walls. The evening meal, 7 p.m. The great hall fills with the warm hum of conversation as the household gathers for the evening meal. Lord Edmund takes his place at the high table, elevated on a dais that overlooks the hall. To his right sits Lady Margaret, resplendent in a gown of deep blue wool trimmed with silver thread. To his left, their eldest son William, a knight of 19 summers, still bearing the dust of the day's training in the castle yard. The meal begins with the washing of hands, a ritual both practical and symbolic in an age where personal hygiene was closely linked to spiritual cleanliness. Young pages, boys of noble birth, aged 10 to 14, serve the high table with practiced efficiency, their movements graceful despite their youth. Sir Geoffrey de Clare, the castle's marshal and Lord Edmund's oldest friend, regales the table with news from London. King Edward III, he reports, has been victorious in France, and there is talk of great celebrations planned for the coming spring. The conversation flows like wine, gentle, warming, and rich with the day's small triumphs and concerns. At the lower tables, the castle's craftsmen and servants enjoy their own feast. Master John the blacksmith sits beside Thomas the carpenter, their work-hardened hands now gentle as they break bread together. The seamstresses, led by the capable Mistress Alice, share gossip and laughter, their day's labor of mending and creating temporarily forgotten. Soft musical interlude. Historical insight. Medieval dining was a communal affair that reinforced social hierarchies while fostering community bonds. The high table literally sat higher than others, and the quality of food and dining vessels decreased with social rank. However, everyone in the castle community was fed, housed, and clothed, creating a complex but stable social system. Young Sarah, a kitchen maid of 16, carefully carries trenchers of food to the tables. Her day began before dawn, and it will not end until long after midnight. But she works with quiet pride, knowing her labor contributes to the smooth running of this small kingdom within walls. The meal progresses through multiple courses, each announced by a flourish from the castle's musicians. The food is hearty and flavorful, seasoned with herbs from the castle's garden and spices that have traveled from distant lands. Ale flows freely, brewed in the castle's own brewery from barley grown in the surrounding fields. Evening entertainment, 8:30 p.m. As the final course is cleared away, the evening's entertainment begins. Master William the minstrel, a traveling storyteller who arrived that morning, rises to share tales of distant lands and brave knights. His voice, trained in the bardic tradition, fills the great hall with magic. Tonight he tells the story of Sir Galahad's quest for the Holy Grail, a tale both thrilling and deeply spiritual. The audience listens with rapt attention, from the youngest page to Lord Edmund himself. In an age without books for common folk, such storytellers were the keepers of culture, history, and dreams. Lady Margaret works on her embroidery as she listens, her skilled fingers creating intricate patterns on an altar cloth for the chapel. Beside her, her daughter Eleanor, 13, and already showing signs of her mother's grace and intelligence, practices her letters on a wax tablet, one of the few young women in the region who can read and write. The castle's children, pages, servants' children, and young relatives sit cross-legged on the rush-strewn floor, their eyes wide with wonder as the minstrel weaves his tale. In the flickering candlelight, imagination transforms the great hall into distant kingdoms and magical realms. A moment of medieval wonder. The ability to read and write was rare in 1347, possessed by perhaps 10% of the population. Most history was preserved through oral tradition, making storytellers like Master William the living libraries of their time. A skilled minstrel could earn more in one evening than a craftsman might make in a month. The first watch, 9:30 p.m. As the entertainment draws to a close, the castle settles into its evening routines. The great doors are barred for the night, massive oak beams, reinforced with iron, that would take a dozen men to lift. Sir Robert the Gatekeeper, a grizzled veteran of many campaigns, performs this duty with the same attention to detail he once brought to defending castle walls in battle. The night watch begins. 6 men-at-arms take their positions on the battlements, their footsteps echoing softly on the stone walkways. These are not mere guards, but skilled warriors who have sworn their lives to protect everyone sleeping within these walls. Their watch will continue until dawn, with shifts changing every 4 hours. Brother Marcus, a young monk who serves as the castle's assistant priest, makes his way through the corridors, ensuring that all candles in common areas are properly secured. Fire is the greatest enemy of any medieval castle, more feared than any army. His careful attention to such details has prevented many potential disasters. In the Lord's Solar, the private family chambers, Lady Margaret brushes her long hair by candlelight, while Lord Edmund reviews the castle's accounts. Their conversation is soft and intimate, discussing their children's education, the upcoming harvest festival, and the small but important decisions that keep their realm prosperous and peaceful. Historical detail: the Solar was the private living space of noble families, often the only heated room besides the Great Hall. The name comes from the Latin sol, sun, because these rooms were built to capture maximum daylight and were often the brightest spaces in the castle during the day. The servants' night routine, 10:30 p.m. In the Great Hall, the evening's cleanup begins in earnest. The trestle tables are disassembled and stacked against the walls, transforming the dining space back into the castle's main living area. The rushes on the floor, mixed with herbs for freshness, are swept and refreshed where needed. Mary, the chambermaid, tends to the family's chambers, turning down beds that are true luxuries in this age. Soft mattresses stuffed with goose down, covered with sheets of fine linen, and topped with warm woolen blankets. She checks the braziers that provide heat, ensuring they burn safely through the night. In the kitchens, the day's massive cleanup continues. Cooking pots large enough for a child to sit in are scrubbed clean, and the great fireplaces are banked for the night but kept alive. For tomorrow's bread must begin baking before dawn. The kitchen never truly sleeps. Young Tom, a stable boy of 14, makes his final rounds through the castle's mews, the home to hunting birds that are prized beyond silver. The peregrine falcons and goshawks rest on their perches, hooded and calm. These magnificent creatures represent both sport and status to the noble family, and their care is entrusted only to those who have proven their skill and dedication. Medieval fact: falconry was so important to medieval nobility that a hierarchy of birds existed. Emperors flew golden eagles, kings flew gerfalcons, earls flew peregrine falcons, and yeomen flew goshawks. The loss of a lord's favorite hunting bird was considered a serious crime, sometimes punishable by death. Midnight, the deep watch. The great bell tolls midnight, marking the transition to what medieval people called the deep watch, the quietest, most mystical hours of the night. The castle settles into a profound stillness, broken only by the soft footsteps of guards on their rounds and the occasional settling creak of ancient timbers. Sir William, Lord Edmund's son, takes his turn on the night watch. At 19, he has already proven himself in tournament and in the small border skirmishes that occasionally trouble these peaceful lands. Tonight, he walks the battlements with the measured pace of a true knight, his mail hauberk reflecting the starlight, his sword ready but unblooded. In the castle's dungeon, a simple holding cell rather than the torture chamber of popular imagination, one prisoner sleeps on clean straw. He is a poacher, caught taking rabbits from the Lord's forest, and will face judgment tomorrow. Even here, in the depths of the castle, the prisoner has been provided with bread, ale, and a warm blanket. Justice in Lord Edmund's realm is firm but fair. The castle's cats prowl the corridors and storage areas, serving as the medieval equivalent of pest control. These are working animals, valued for their skill in keeping the castle free of rats and mice that could destroy precious food stores. Each cat knows its territory and performs its duty with feline dignity. A medieval knight's reflection. In this age, without electric light, darkness held both fear and wonder. People lived by the natural rhythms of sun and moon, understanding the night as a time for rest, reflection, and spiritual contemplation. The darkness was not merely the absence of light, but a presence unto itself, full of mystery and meaning. Brother Francis, the night priest, maintains a vigil in the chapel, keeping the sacred flame burning and offering prayers for the safety of all who sleep within these walls. His quiet devotion represents the spiritual foundation upon which this entire community rests. The small hours, 1:30 a.m. In these deepest hours of the night, the castle reveals its most intimate secrets. The great stones, warmed by the day's sun, slowly release their heat into the cooling air. The walls themselves seem to breathe with the accumulated life of generations who have lived, loved, and died within their protection. Lady Margaret sleeps peacefully beside her lord, her dreams filled with plans for their daughter's education and their son's advancement at court. Beside them, their youngest child, 7-year-old Robert, sleeps the profound sleep of childhood, his small form dwarfed by the great bed, but safe in his parents' presence. In the servants' quarters, the day workers find rest in simple but adequate chambers. Each servant has a straw mattress, woolen blankets, and a small chest for personal belongings. While their accommodations are modest, compared to their lords, they represent security and dignity that many in the outside world cannot claim. Master Geoffrey the cook, his day's work finally complete, sits by the dying embers of the kitchen fire, enjoying a quiet cup of ale and planning tomorrow's meals. His kitchen serves not just as a place of food preparation, but as the warm heart of castle life, always welcoming, always nourishing. Historical perspective. Medieval castle life, despite its hierarchies, fostered a sense of extended family. Servants often spent their entire lives within one castle, watching children grow to become lords and ladies. This created bonds of loyalty and mutual responsibility that went far beyond simple employment. The night guard changes shift with military precision. Fresh sentries take their posts as their comrades retire to rest. Each guard knows that the lives of hundreds depend on his vigilance, and they carry this responsibility with quiet pride. Before dawn, 4 a.m. As the night begins its slow retreat, the castle stirs with the earliest preparations for a new day. In the kitchen, the bread ovens are relit, their warmth beginning to spread through the connected buildings. The day's first loaves will emerge, just as the sun clears the horizon. Brother Marcus begins the preparation for Lord's, the dawn prayer service that will formally welcome the new day. He lights fresh candles and arranges the sacred vessels, his movements reverent and precise. The chapel awaits the arrival of the faithful, ready to sanctify the transition from night to day. Young Annie, a kitchen maid who rises before all others, begins the enormous task of preparing porridge for the entire castle community. In massive cauldrons, oats and barley simmer with milk and honey, creating a warm, nourishing meal that will fuel the day's labor. The stable boys, led by Master Hugh the groom, begin tending to the castle's horses. These magnificent destriers, palfreys and rounceys represent both transportation and warfare capability. Each animal receives individual attention, fresh hay, clean water, and gentle words of encouragement. Dawn approaches. In the medieval world, dawn was not merely the beginning of another day, but a daily miracle, the victory of light over darkness, order over chaos, hope over despair. Each sunrise was greeted with gratitude and recognized as a gift from the divine. Sir Robert the Gatekeeper begins preparing for the day's opening of the castle gates. His inspection of the massive wooden barriers is thorough, checking each beam, each iron fitting, each lock. When those gates open at sunrise, they must be ready to welcome friends and strong enough to bar enemies. Dawn breaks, 6 a.m. As the first light of dawn touches the eastern sky, painting it in shades of gold and rose, Ravenscroft Castle awakens to greet another day. The great bell tolls the hour of Lords, calling the faithful to morning prayer, and the night watch passes peacefully into memory. Lord Edmund stands once again upon the battlements, this time greeting the sunrise as he bid farewell to the sunset 12 hours before. The lands spread below him show the first stirrings of activity. Smoke rising from village chimneys, farmers beginning their walk to the fields, merchants preparing for the day's travel. The great gates swing open with well-oiled precision, and the castle's connection to the wider world is restored. Messengers await departure. Traders prepare to enter, and the daily commerce that sustains this medieval community begins anew. In the great hall, the household gathers for the breaking of the fast, the meal that gives us our word, breakfast. The long trestle tables are assembled once more, and the warm smell of fresh bread fills the air. The community that shared the evening meal now shares the morning meal, marking the successful completion of another night and the hopeful beginning of a new day. Reflection on the medieval night. Through these 12 hours of darkness, we have witnessed the quiet dignity of medieval life. No great battles were fought, no dragons were slain, no kingdoms were won or lost. Instead, we have seen something perhaps more remarkable: the daily miracle of a community caring for itself and each other, of order maintained through cooperation and mutual respect, of the simple but profound act of making it safely through another night. This is the true story of the Middle Ages, not the tales of warfare and conquest that fill our history books, but the countless quiet nights when ordinary people did their duty, cared for their families, and built the foundation of civilization one day at a time. As the sun rises fully over Ravenscroft Castle, painting its ancient stones in warm golden light, we leave our medieval friends to their day's work, carrying with us the peace and certainty that comes from witnessing a community at rest, secure within walls built not just of stone, but of tradition, loyalty, and love. Segment 2: True Nights in Real Places. The quiet hours in castles across medieval Europe. Tonight, we travel across centuries, past winter winds and moonlit stone walls, to visit real medieval castles as they might have been, not in battle, but in repose. Each journey takes us to a specific place and time, each one a true reflection of medieval life after sunset. A night in a 12th century Norman castle. In the year 1154, Castle Hedingham rises like a pale tower of order above the Essex countryside. Built by Norman lords descended from William the Conqueror's knights, its thick, rounded keep embodies the power of stone newly brought to England. As dusk falls, the stone corridors still smell faintly of mortar and smoke. Norman retainers finish their evening tasks. The Lord, Geoffrey de Vere, dines not with pomp, but with practicality, bread trenchers topped with venison from his own hunt. His household of perhaps 30 souls lives entirely within the keep's thick walls, the outer bailey mostly dark and empty at night. The single great hall serves every purpose: court, dining space, council room, and sleeping place. As the fire in the central hearth dies down, the air within the circular tower grows cold. Each guard upon the wall hears the wind moan through the embrasures and the distant barking of dogs below. No one walks outside after dark, for in this early century, even peace is temporary. Torches flicker, prayers are whispered. The castle's chapel bell will toll at midnight, and all will wake once, briefly, to tend embers, check gates, and murmur a pater noster before returning to uneasy dreams. A night in a 13th century English castle. By 1250, England is calmer, wealthier, and more domestic. At Windsor, or in lesser castles like Framlingham or Chepstow, castle life has matured into elegant order. Records survive that tell us precisely what an evening cost: candles of tallow for the servants, beeswax for the chapel and lord's chamber, 6 fresh loaves of rye bread for the evening board, a gallon of ale for the night watch. Lady Aveline counts her linen in the solar as her tire-woman folds double sheets embroidered with her family crest. The constable reports that 4 guards have taken first watch. 2 will circle the outer wall, while others remain in the gatehouse. The scribe of the castle settles down with a single oil lamp to finish his ledger, recording the measures of grain and the daily wages of masons restoring a crumbling wall. Paper is precious, and every word must earn its place. In the great hall, only one hearth remains lit. Pages unroll their straw mats around its base, pulling cloaks close around their shoulders. Even in lordly homes, warmth is precious. The last sound before sleep is often the cough of the fire as it settles into ash. A night in a 14th century French castle. It is the year 1378. Beyond the Loire River, Château de Langeais rests beneath a calm moon. The age of war still rages beyond its walls, but inside, refinement reigns. This is France in its courtly century, a land of poetry, tapestry, and faith. Lady Isabeau of Anjou walks through her candlelit gallery, her slippered feet silent upon woven mats. Her husband is away serving the king, and so the keep is ruled by women tonight: the steward, the nursemaid, the mistress of the household. In the castle kitchens, a cook murmurs prayers over simmering preserves, sealing barrels of cherries against the coming winter. In the oratory, a chaplain finishes compline, filling the curved space with echoes of Gregorian plainchant. Above, through high, narrow windows, moonlight slants across the painted walls, saints with gold halos that catch the flickering torchlight. When the household sleeps, a servant girl carries a lantern through the dark tower to check for rats in the pantry, her small flame reflected again and again in hanging copper pots. She pauses for a moment at a window slit, gazing across the Loire's silver current. She cannot read or write, yet she lives within civilization's finest artistry, unseen but essential. A night in a 15th century Burgundian castle. By the late 1400s, in the Duchy of Burgundy, castles are elegant estates rather than mere fortresses. Philip the Good's courtiers have transformed feudal bulwarks into homes of comfort and refinement. At the Château de Germolles, built for Margaret of Flanders, life is ordered, secure, vividly documented. In a candlelit library, monks from nearby Cluny copy manuscripts bound for the ducal archive, stories of saints and records of wool exports alike. Fine glass windows filter the moonlight. The air smells faintly of lavender. Perfumed sachets hang beside curtains to sweeten the close stone air. Pages move silently with lamps of horn-shielded light. In Lady Margaret's chamber, embroidered hangings portray hunting scenes stitched in silk from Venice. Beneath a canopy bed, a small brazier glows warmly. At midnight, the castle guard notes the time by a water clock, time measured not by stars or prayer alone, but by invention. Civilization has grown quieter, softer, and more certain. The night belongs not to fear, but to thought. A night in a Welsh border castle. On the rugged frontier between England and Wales, a different night rules. It is 1295 at Harlech Castle. The air carries salt from the Irish Sea, and the wind is never silent. The walls, newly built by King Edward's masons, gleam pale in the moonlight, vast, geometric, defiant. Yet within, life is intimate, human, and utterly still. Only a few men-at-arms keep the garrison now. They eat salted meat and coarse bread, warmed by thick woolen cloaks as the wind howls through arrow slits. In the Lord's absence, a clerk meticulously records stores of ale and barley. A single candle burns beside him, guarded by a small glass globe to keep the flame from draughts. Outside, frost coats the parapets, turning every stone edge into silver. Somewhere between the fortress and the silence of the hills, the ghostly cry of an owl carries across the courtyard. Far below, the tide rises. The world narrows to the ring of the wind around stone, an immovable peace born of endurance. A night in a Scottish Highland castle. Far to the north, in the Highlands, Craigievar Castle glows against the night. The year is 1456. The walls are thick and rough-hewn, the air chill and scented of pine. A solitary glen stretches below, silvered under the moon. Within, the laird's household gathers close to the hearth, where turf and peat burn slow and steady. Stories are told in Gaelic, of giants and ancestors, of ravens and clan founders. The hounds sleep at their master's feet. Up the spiral stair, wind seeps through shuttered slits, and a single guard at the battlements looks out upon the starlit moor. He can see no light for miles. That isolation is both fearsome and sacred. The knowledge that this tower stands alone, self-sufficient, against the night. Before dawn, the household will wake to grind oats and kindle the fire anew. But for now, time itself seems asleep, breathing quietly in the Highlands. A night in a German imperial castle. It is 1320, and the imperial fortress of Nuremberg rises proud above the city. This castle is not remote. It beats in rhythm with the town below. Through the narrow streets drift smells of roasting chestnuts and the clatter of horses late returning from the taverns. Within the Kaiserberg, guards making their rounds pause to listen to the bells of St. Sebald's Church echo through the valley. The emperor is not in residence, so the steward oversees the night's order, counting keys, confirming watchposts, overseeing the great iron chest where the imperial seal is locked away. Monks visit the chapel after compline, their voices united in a final psalm. In another chamber, the steward's wife listens to the scratch of quills from scribes completing official documents by candlelight, decrees that will cross mountains tomorrow at dawn. Even here, in the empire's beating heart, the night belongs to those who keep faith and diligence. 1,000 lanterns flicker across Nuremberg below like reflections of the stars, uniting heaven and earth in quiet industry. A night in an Italian hilltop castle. The year is 1412. High above the Tuscan valley, the castle of Monteriggioni keeps watch over the vineyards and winding roads below. The stones still glow faintly with the day's heat. The air hums with summer life. Inside, the night is alive but not restless. A poet visiting from Florence writes by lamplight, composing verses in Latin. The Lord's daughter tends small pots of herbs on a balcony under moonlight. Rosemary, sage, basil, each chosen for comfort and medicine. Servants move like shadows through colonnaded halls, their sandals whispering on cool tiles. In the lower courtyard, a fountain murmurs softly, fed by an aqueduct centuries old. The scent of olive oil and plaster fills the night. As midnight comes, cicadas fade and silence reigns. The stone lions above the gate stare out toward Siena, toward the road of merchants sleeping near their wagons. The castle rests, half military, half villa, a bridge between the medieval and the Renaissance dawn. A night in a Crusader castle after the armies had gone. In the year 1291, far from Europe, the fortress of Crac des Chevaliers stands empty under a Syrian moon. Once held by the Knights Hospitaller, its thick walls now guard only silence. The Crusades have ended. The cross has yielded to the crescent, and yet the stones remember all. Beneath the vast vaulted ceiling of the refectory, bats flutter where once the hymns of warriors echoed. Wind sighs through arrow slits carved to repel armies long dispersed. A single hermit, a Syrian monk, tends a small oil lamp in what was once the chapel. He has chosen this solitude to pray for all souls lost in the wars of faith. His chant echoes to the roof and vanishes into the sand-laden air. The stars burn with indifferent brilliance above him. The Crusaders are gone, their banners dust, yet the night remains calm. What once was pride has become peace. A night in a small river castle, along medieval trade routes. Elsewhere, more modest fortresses line the Rhine and Danube. It is the 14th century. We rest tonight at a little water castle near Koblenz, where tolls are collected from passing merchants. Its entire garrison numbers perhaps 12. After sunset, the water glows silver. Barges drift by, their crews singing softly in low tongues. Inside, the tollmaster counts silver pennies by lantern light, recording each name and cargo in a ledger, bound with leather. The small tower room smells of ink, damp stone, and the faint perfume of the river itself. From the window slit, a night heron glides silently over the water. Below, a watchman leans against the parapet, listening to the steady rhythm of the current. When dawn comes, traders will once again call for the gate to open and the chain across the river to be lifted. For now, the castle sleeps beside the gentle flow of commerce, humanity at peace with its duty. Closing reflection for segment 2. Across these centuries and lands, from Norman towers to Italian villas, one truth unites every night. Each castle, great or small, was both fortress and home. When walls ceased to echo with commands, when torches burned low, what remained was the universal rhythm of quiet endurance. The same stars looked down upon stone towers and thatched villages alike, whispering that history is not made only by battles and kings, but by countless peaceful nights when ordinary people kept watch, kept faith, and simply carried on. Would you like me to move on to segment 3? Knighthood, honor, and the rituals of chivalry, continuing in the same calm, immersive tone. This next chapter would follow a knight's life cycle as page, squire, crusader, and elder, mixing story and documented history for another 40 to 60 minutes of serene narration. This is the next segment 3. The quiet lives of knights. Human stories, not legends. How medieval knights lived when they were not fighting. How knights balanced faith, duty, and rest. How knights prepared their minds for sleep. How medieval knights maintained their equipment. True stories of famous knights in old age. True stories of aging knights living peacefully in castles. How knights traveled between castles and where they slept. How knights learned to rest between campaigns. Perfect. This is where your story takes a serene turn inward. After 2 richly visual chapters focused on knight itself and castle life, segment 3 is all about humanity, not battles or glory, but the calm intervals between them. This section will be deeply meditative and steeped in quiet realism, ideal for sleep storytelling while remaining historically authentic and emotionally resonant. This script is paced to last 50 to 60 minutes, serving as the steady heart of your 4-hour experience. Segment 3, The Quiet Lives of Knights, Human Stories, Not Legends. Not every knight's life was shaped by battle. For most, wars were rare and brief, while long years passed in service, administration, prayer, or study. Even those who once followed their kings to war eventually returned to homes and halls where duty became quieter, keeping the peace, tending domains, raising families, and managing the delicate harmony between faith, rest, and responsibility. Tonight, we turn away from banners and tournaments to explore what knights did when the world allowed them to breathe, how they lived, prayed, prepared for sleep, and finally aged into calm custodians of everything they had once defended. How medieval knights lived when they were not fighting. Imagine a countryside during late summer of the year 1362. The Kingdom of England is recovering from plague and war. Sir Henry de Morville, once a youthful companion of Edward the Black Prince, now lives a quieter existence in his manor near Salisbury. His day begins before sunrise, not with a call to arms, but with estate business, inspecting tenants' fields, conferring with his steward, hearing small disputes, ensuring that his lands produce enough grain to feed not just his household, but those who rely on him. A knight's life at peace often meant administration, an early form of public service. His hall is the heart of local order. Justice, record-keeping, and hospitality all fall to him. Where once he bore sword and shield, now he bears seal and document. In the evenings, Sir Henry and his wife Eleanor host supper for retainers and travelers. Their laughter fills the hall, and children sit quietly at their father's feet, listening as he recounts tales of jousts in London, or how the banners of France once glittered under a foreign sun. But these tales are not of conquest. They are memories softened by wisdom and passing time. Historical note: contrary to the romantic image of constant warfare, most knights spent as much as 95% of their lives off the battlefield. Their peacekeeping, management, and mentoring of younger squires were the steady gears of medieval stability. How knights balanced faith, duty, and rest. Each hour of a knight's day was framed by faith. Morning prayers, matins at dawn, began the rhythm. Before any task, he knelt at the household chapel, or before a wall-hung crucifix, offering the day's labor to God. The sword above his mantle was more than a weapon. It was a sacred trust. To wield power lawfully demanded continuous conscience. When peace reigned, duty changed its texture. The same discipline that once governed arms now guided behavior. How to judge a dispute fairly, repair a tenant's roof, or ensure proper arms at the monastery gate. Knights were moral exemplars by appointment. Night brought examination of conscience. After compline, the final prayer before sleep, a knight would extinguish his candles one by one, marking each dimming flame as a reflection on some duty done or deferred. Then, in silence, he rested with the certainty that a peaceful sleep required a peaceful conscience. Historical reflection. Medieval people believed sleep mirrored spiritual condition. Manuals of knightly conduct, like the Livre de Chivalry by Geoffroy de Charny, urged men to keep their faith pure before lying down, lest dreams become hauntings of guilt. How knights prepared their minds for sleep. Nighttime rituals of rest were half discipline, half devotion. The knight's chamber was often sparse: a wooden bed with heavy linen, a chest for armor, a prayer bench, and a single candle. Before the fire was banked, he might unbuckle his belt, wrap the sword carefully in cloth, never lying with its blade pointed toward another living soul, and open a psalm book or small devotional volume. Reading aloud was common. It steadied the breath, calmed the pulse. You can almost hear the murmur of Latin psalms. In pace, in idipsum dormium. I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. Some knights wrote fragments of their own daily reflections, simple and human. This day I have spoken hard to my squire. Tomorrow I will speak softer. In that humility lies their real nobility, not the triumph of arms, but the quiet mastery of the self. When candles guttered low, they covered the embers, lay back upon coarse linen, and let silence deepen like a prayer unfinished. How medieval knights maintained their equipment. Long before tournaments, battles, or parades, maintenance defined the knightly identity. Every piece of armor, every bit and spur needed constant attention. Though squires handled the heavy cleaning, experienced knights personally inspected each link, each strap, as carefully as a clerk checks his ledger. At the close of day, the clink of metal was almost meditative. They used vinegar and sand to scour rust, oiled the joints with animal fat, and tested plates for weak rivets. Chainmail whispered like water through their hands. This ritual maintenance symbolized more than preservation. It marked devotion to craft, honor, and readiness. A neglected sword was moral negligence. Polished steel reflected both light and conscience. The act itself, done by firelight, became a trance, repetitive, calming, centuries before meditation was named as such. Historical truth. Many knights had no wars to fight for years at a time, but armor was inspected weekly. Treatises from the 14th century describe maintenance as a spiritual discipline, equal in dignity to prayer. True stories of famous knights in old age. By the time Sir John Chandos, companion of the Black Prince, reached his later years, he was remembered not for slaughter, but for mercy. Chroniclers note how he would walk unarmed among prisoners, granting them courtesy and offering food. The older he grew, the softer his speech became, and yet men still straightened when he passed. In France, Geoffroy de Charny spent his twilight years writing what he hoped would outlast him, a book on the meaning of true knighthood. It taught that valor without humility was vanity, that all earthly striving should end in peace of soul. When he died in 1356, his manuscripts were found beside his bed, proof that his faith and identity were one. Sir Thomas Erpingham, in later life, built almshouses for the poor in Norwich, where his sword once glittered in battle, his hands now ladled soup into wooden bowls. History remembers his triumph at Agincourt, but within his own heart, his peace was built one act of charity at a time. Reflection. In the quiet glow of age, the greatest knights turned inward. Their fame paled beside the simpler acts of forgiveness, patience, and instruction, teaching the next generation how to live gently in a world that had once demanded steel. True stories of aging knights living peacefully in castles. By the 15th century, aging knights became the steady elders of their communities. Their castles, no longer fortresses of fear, had become schools of courtesy. Imagine Sir Alaric Fitzalan of Kent, 80 years old, his sight fading. Each morning, he sat beside his window, wrapped in wool, listening to his grandchildren read romances aloud. When he struggled to hear, he would smile faintly and finish the remembered lines himself. His hall was filled with relics of a life once martial: dented helmets, faded banners, the broken haft of a lance. Yet above all hung one small painting, Saint Martin dividing his cloak to share with a beggar. That story of charity had become his mirror. At night, servants lit the brazier. The old knight's household knelt together for prayer, as they always had. He murmured blessings for his people, his lands, his faithful squire, now grey-haired as himself. When he finally dozed, his dreams were calm, fields under summer sun, the sound of children laughing in the courtyard. No bugles, no fear, just the serenity earned by a disciplined spirit. How knights traveled between castles and where they slept. Knights were travelers bound by oaths of service or the call of their lords. Travel was slow, 20 to 30 miles in a day, and each evening meant seeking safe lodging before sunset. Inns were rare. Mostly, they relied on abbeys, friends' manors, or the hospitality of fellow knights. At roadside hostels, a knight might sleep beside merchants or pilgrims, his sword laid within arm's reach, wrapped in a cloak. In abbeys, he prayed with monks before resting on simple pallet beds. His horse, his true companion, was fed first. Only once the animal was settled would the knight take his own meal. In spring, he might sleep beneath the open sky, shield for pillow, listening to the night sounds, a rhythm not of war, but of watchful rest. For a knight's life was one of vigilance, even in peace. Historical detail. Letters from 14th century knights describe long journeys where hospitality among equals was vital. One wrote, "In every stranger I found my brother in arms, and in every abbey God's open door." How knights learned to rest between campaigns. Between campaigns, those years of uneasy calm, knights had to relearn ordinary life. The habits of war linger: early waking, sharp watchfulness, the echo of commands. But rest required unlearning. The most disciplined men devoted themselves to hobbies, arts, and religion. Some painted heraldry, others tended falcons or gardens. Some copied texts by hand, mastering patience in labor rather than in combat. Horses still needed care, armor still gleamed, but gradually muscles relaxed and hearts remembered peace. Before sleep in these years, veterans often whispered psalms or counted memories, not victories, but faces of those who shared their watchfires. There was no language then for the weariness in their souls, yet they sought healing through quiet work, companionship, and devotion. In this repose, more lasting than campaigns, the code of chivalry found its truth: to protect, to serve, to live honorably. and above all, to rest with gratitude. Closing reflection for segment 3. The knights of old were not eternal warriors. They were human beings, bound to the same rhythms that guide us all: labor, faith, rest, renewal. Beneath armor and titles, there beat hearts, yearning not for conquest, but for peace. Peace earned through discipline, humility, and remembrance. As the last of their fires die down, as stars bloom above the old battlements, imagine the slow exhale of 100 sleeping warriors turned caretakers, turned teachers, turned dust. Theirs was not the restless sleep of glory, but the deep stillness of those who finally learned the art of rest.